das? Kannst du es nochmal machen?
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. I love you guys. You're awesome. Hope you're having a great time. Now, we are starting the week off a little bit scary, right? We've seen Bitcoin actually sitting below this resistance. You can actually see right now, we're trying to push up on it. We also have the S&P, unfortunately, stocks opening a little bit rough on today's Monday open, and the Fear and Greed Index is now back into extreme fear territory as the Fed looks to accelerate their hawkish stance. There's fears in the markets. There's uncertainty. There is doubt as the stocks are continuing to fall. However, guys, there is something very important that I want to pay attention to today. It is a metric that we should start talking about because it is getting down to crunch time. Could it actually be bullish for Bitcoin? Now, I know what you're saying. Is anything even bullish in this environment? Well, I do want to discuss something that could be coming to fruition very, very soon. And I promise you guys, as bad as things seem right now, there is a major global shift happening very quietly right now. Not a lot of people paying attention to, but it could actually be amazing for Bitcoin. Also, in other news, you may have seen that the Central African Republic is looking to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. Is this true? We're going to dive into it because if this is true, then they would in fact be, the next major country or entity to adopt Bitcoin. So we will talk about that as well. And of course, guys, I am going to be going over my short-term price action. If you are looking to trade, you guys know what I'm expecting, but we'll go over it again in that video. And obviously, if you are not subscribed, thank you so much for everyone that has been coming back to the channel, even in these dark and gloomy times. And if you haven't, well, definitely get subscribed, turn on the bell notification. You know what to do. Let's dive in. Let's have a look. So, as I had pointed out, we had this upward sloping support, which Bitcoin was holding very, very nicely ever since we came back here in January of 2022. This year, however, we are starting to fall below it. And what is a little bit worrisome, if we just zoom in right here, you could see that this yellow line right here, which, was very, very important for flipping that resistance, into potential support, we have actually lost that. And currently, we have this red daily candle trying to break above it. Yesterday, we actually closed below it, right? So the main thing that I was looking for to really signal that reversal essentially was this volume. I did not see the volume. This is why I was not convinced about this move. There still remains the possibility. Of course, we could just pump, anything can happen. We could have a short squeeze, lots of open interest. I told you guys, massive volatility imminent. And if everyone's going short, there could be that short squeeze. However, given what's happening right now globally, there is that potential chance that we do get that scare. We do come down here. I would like to see us hold at around the $36,100 level, but there is that possibility that we come all the way down to $34,400, which is, in my opinion, a very, very, very significant level for Bitcoin. So I still am anticipating that. And if we do get down at these levels and we do see the volume coming in like this, then honestly, that would be an opportunity, in my opinion, to put in a long if you are looking to trade. But one of the most important things, guys, is, a lot of people, when they do try to trade, they think that you need to trade every single day. And as you guys know, first of all, I don't give really trading advice on this channel. I just tell you what I'm doing. I don't try to chase these things. I wait for them to come to me. So this trend right here, you can see this upward sloping support, right? Right here, we started down where we had this tail. We had this tail wick down here as well. So that would be the level to really pay attention to, because that is where we see the massive buyers come in. We see the volume come in. So if we have these levels get hit, even if it's a quick one, we see the volume come in. That is the opportunity to take that long, right? And if you guys do want to learn how to trade, obviously there's over $16,000 in bonuses below. Lots of opportunities for you guys. Do watch the tutorial popping up above, but ultimately that is where I would be looking to take that trade. Now, on the flip side, right, there is that bearish scenario. What if, what if all of this doesn't hold and it's just a giant double top and Bitcoin ends up crashing? Well, we did speak about that a few days ago on the video. Would not be long-term bad for Bitcoin. It really wouldn't be, guys. You have no idea the amount of interest in Bitcoin that is truly happening right now. The media is not talking about it. Trust me when I tell you, there are some big entities looking into Bitcoin right now. But ultimately, yes, you would want to maintain sort of this giant triangle, right? This is an ascending triangle, because what are we doing if we just go back here on the lower time frame? Realistically, okay, ultimately people are saying, a lot of textbooks would say that this is a bear flag, right? We came off this massive move to the downside. We're having a rising, right? We are getting higher lows, but that is sort of characteristic of a bear flag, and then eventually you do have that continuation to the downside. Now, obviously, none of this is confirmed yet. It's just something that we need to pay attention to. But even worst case scenario, and this is actually before I had even mentioned the possibility of this being an ascending triangle, way before we even had enough data to support that, we had spoke about having this double top. Now, double tops are usually, reversal signals. That's it. Market's over. We're going the other way. But even if we were to come all the way down, let's say even below this level, down to some of these tails that we got down here, that would still be something that we've seen. Where did we see that? We saw that back between 1997 in April and this massive capitulation crash of March of 09 in the S&P. We also saw a very similar move in the Dow Jones as well, where we did have, this move right here. We had a higher high. That's what we saw for Bitcoin. We came down. We had this little fake out sort of bear trap. They thought it was going lower. And look what happened. Look what happened. Spike in volume, right? Guys, look at the volume. You can see massive volume right here. Here's the hump. Here's the volume. That's the reversal signal, right? And what you end up doing is then after your double top, right, you end up putting in a massive double bottom, which are very, very bullish for Bitcoin, right? Historically, actually, if we, go back and look at Bitcoin, we see a lot of these double bottoms, right? We saw a double bottom here. We go back a little farther. Do I have the data on this to show it? This is almost like a triple bottom, right? But you could say it's a little more pronounced right here and here. So yeah, these patterns, if we were to get them, would be very, very bullish for Bitcoin. And I like scribbling on charts a lot, as you guys can tell. Having a look sort of at the CME futures, I told you that probably immediately we weren't going to see that volatility because we were actually being supported by this trend. But ultimately, it does seem like they are moving in tandem, not too much to be worried about. So that's essentially the analysis, guys. Really, a lot isn't going to change on this channel. I still like to talk about it. I'm giving you the trade setups, but personally, don't dive into them if they're not there. And like I have told you guys, there is spot trading, and I do recommend that if you're not an expert or you don't have experience trading. And as you guys know, there is a campaign going on right now with us in MEXC Global. If you're interested, they are US friendly, up to 10 Bitcoin daily withdrawals. And if you use the link below, you get $25, right? And I mean, you could literally just do stablecoin trading if you want. You don't even have to do anything risky. $1,000 giveaway to a few select winners. You guys obviously have to use that. And of course, you get 10% trading fees off for life. So pretty good deal over there. Pretty good deal, guys. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the DXY. The DXY is reaching levels that we saw slightly peak March of 2020. And right here, we had this top in January of 2017. And we do have this sort of trend line that it does look like the DXY is most likely going to come up and touch, right? The same way that it came up here, we got the fake out above the 100 and then we fell. So my question is this time different? Is it different this time, really? Because of everything that the Fed is saying, because of all the things happening right now globally, is it actually different? Well, if you have a look right here at the BLX chart, and I'm going to show you exactly why I have these levels drawn out right here. If we actually overlap the dollar chart, the DXY, on top of this, so as you guys can see right here, this is the DXY, the yellow. The scales are a little bit off, but I'm just showing it so you guys can see it visually. These represent moments where we had the peak of the DXY. Now, this one right here, Bitcoin was already in the middle of a bull trend. So some could say that maybe that's a little bit invalidated. Maybe Bitcoin was already doing well, right? So, okay, that's a possibility. However, we did notice that at that point, when we did have that signal topping out, Bitcoin still went up another 2,136%. Now we zoom into over here. Obviously, this was when we had the COVID crash, right? So this also signaled the bottom. I realize that now when I move that, the levels move because they're two different charts. So I'll try to keep it straight for you guys so you guys could see. But ultimately right here, we come down, we have that crash. What do we have? We have a 1,637% move for Bitcoin. Now, as we approach this level, as we approach this blue level again, the question is, going back to the DXY, will we have that rejection and will this kickstart the next major parabolic run for Bitcoin? It is something to consider. This time is different. I get it. Potential looming recession, but I just want to point this out to you guys. Now, I do want to start super quick with this Central African Republic news, and then we do have a lot to stick around. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. There is a video that I want to play for you that happened at a conference, and when you really understand why it is becoming so incredibly attractive to not only small family offices, but maybe sovereign wealth funds, even countries, you realize how ultimately bullish the long-term narrative is for Bitcoin. So essentially right here, it says that they did submit a bill. It did have a unanimous vote by its National Assembly. So this is pretty positive, with the goal to establish a favorable environment for the financial sector that meets the needs of the professional and in this sector of all their economic actors. Should it become law, the bill would also put into place a legal framework over in Africa governing cryptocurrency. And on top of that, the minister has expressed the belief that investing in cryptocurrencies would benefit millions of users, but their volatility is something that should always be kept in mind. Now, here's the kicker. It is not legal tender yet. So there was a report that originally came out, and Forbes, an article came out, interpreted it that essentially Africa was adopting, Bitcoin as legal currency, or at least the Central African Republic was. No, that's not the case, guys. So far, we do only have El Salvador, but, it could happen, right? Eventually, there will be another country to follow. They think it could be Paraguay. Interestingly enough, the U.S. is listed here on a poll as the fourth possible to list Bitcoin as legal tender. So we'll see. This is very good news, by the way. This is very bullish, but it's not quite as bullish as the news was making it seem. So I just want to be a little bit more realistic about that. But one thing we are noticed is the interest and how much these guys realize that they're missing out by not incorporating cryptocurrency services into their platforms. Morgan Stanley recently came out and said wholesale banks have been on the sidelines for the start of the digital asset revolution, missing out on almost all of the $4 billion to $5 billion in revenue that corporate and institutional clients generated last year. Morgan Stanley estimates there is currently as much as $5 billion in revenue and $1 billion in economic value for wholesale banks from direct participation in the crypto ecosystem. That might grow to as high as $16 billion in revenue in the next 3 to 5 years, with more possible opportunities from efficiency derived from streamlining the infrastructure for several wholesale bank businesses. So this is something really, really awesome to pay attention to, but this is the video I wanted to show you, and I wanted to turn this over to you. You may have seen this, guys. This was actually from the Bitcoin Miami conference, but I want to take this little glimpse into this conversation, ignore the title, Unwinding of the Petrodollar, because really it went way far off tangent. They started talking about Bitcoin, and I want to focus on what Lynn Alden and Avik Roy specifically had to say as far as what is actually going on right now, why we haven't seen the big capital come into Bitcoin yet, but how it is slowly getting allocated. And when you realize what needs to happen and what is happening in the background, it's virtually impossible to walk away from what you're about to hear and not feel bullish about Bitcoin.
So Lynn, what role do you see Bitcoin playing, and what kind of shifts do you see coming?
So I think part of understanding how we got to this situation with the petrodollar system and the eurodollar system comes down to understanding what are the properties of good money. And so prior to the system, there was gold, and it checked a lot of boxes for good money. It was scarce and had all the properties that many people here know, but it had weaknesses in terms of portability and auditability, verification, those types of shortcomings. And so despite the fact that it was good at holding its value long term, the fiat system could grow around it for out of convenience, right? And so it's easy to centralize and easy to introduce through military force and diplomatic deals, fiat currencies that can go around it. But even that system, for decades now, the problem there is that you also lack good verification. So a common problem throughout the whole eurodollar, petrodollar market is that it's very hard to track offshore dollars. They're very opaque. And so because this is not a very auditable system, it's shortcomings with the money itself. And then in addition, because the money constantly devalues, there's a very strong incentive to take out debt on it and then use that as leverage. And so you have a system that's not auditable or not very auditable, and then encourages more and more debt accumulation. And so we find ourselves in the situation that we're at now. And so Bitcoin represents, a hope that there's maybe is a money that is good enough, that basically it checks more of the boxes that gold was not fully able to check. So you have the same type of scarcity, but then you also have better portability, better divisibility, better verification. And we're 13 years into this monetization process. And one of the most bullish things about Bitcoin is that there are pools of capital that can't even realistically buy it until it gets bigger. And that was the case, 5 years ago. Corporations, pensions, insurance companies, Bitcoin was too small, too volatile, too risky for them to even really look at. But when it becomes a multi-$100 billion asset, suddenly those large pools of capital can just start looking at it and say, do we want 1% positions? Do we want 5% positions in it out of our portfolio? And when you get even bigger than we are now, right, then you can start looking at the sovereign level. And they can start looking at it as a reserve asset and see how it compares to their other ones. How does it compare in terms of their ability to self-custody it? It's got, censorship-resistant payment rails built into it, in addition to, in the long run, better scarcity than gold. And so if it continues to grow into that and keeps having that Lindy effect build up, I don't see why it wouldn't eventually be part of a number of countries' reserve assets.
I want to amplify that point real quick.
Yeah, for sure. Go on.
The price of Bitcoin relative to the US dollar really does matter. And the reason why it matters is because let's say the market value of all the Bitcoin in the world is 10 trillion instead of 1 trillion, plus or minus. That's when you start to have a situation where the liquidity of Bitcoin for large institutions, for governments, for Deutsche Bank, for a country, they can start to buy and sell Bitcoin at scale in a way that's competitive with the way that today they can buy and sell treasury bonds at scale. And what do I mean by that? That means if I want to buy $300 million of Bitcoin, I can do so without affecting the market price, right? That's what liquidity is. And the ability to do that at scale improves as the value of Bitcoin improves. So it becomes this virtuous cycle where if some countries start to adopt Bitcoin as part of their balance sheet, the price of Bitcoin goes up. That means the liquidity goes up. That means more governments can use it as a reserve asset on their balance sheet, and it's a virtuous cycle. So that is a really important part of the evolution of this market.
And it's almost funny to think about that, right? They want that liquidity, and actually, as the price gets higher, it does attract these bigger players. We've talked about these sovereign wealth funds. They're billions and billions of capital that they're just waiting on the sideline to deploy. 5% allocation, like Kevin O'Leary pointed out. We're talking about long-term, generational holdings, right? Wealth, long-term wealth, and this could push price to ungodly levels. And even some of the most bearish bears that I talk to, even guys that are like Gareth Soloway, who are definitely bearish on the markets right now, agree that Bitcoin is going to eventually become that risk-off asset and give gold a run for its money, right? Skybridge Capital, here's an example. They're working on pivoting the majority of their assets under management to digital assets as the sector represents tremendous growth to the firm. So the hedge fund, as you guys know, was founded by Anthony Scaramucci. He was a former United States politician in 2005, and they are managing 7 million Bitcoin funds, among others, and have been actively working to get a spot Bitcoin exchange traded fund approved by the US, right? Now, I do believe that we are going to see a spot Bitcoin ETF very soon. Will it happen this year? I don't know, but I definitely think by next year, we could definitely see one. They say that the firm is repositioning themselves to eventually be leaders in the cryptocurrency space. We made the decision during the pandemic, and for us, we think that the cryptocurrency markets represent tremendous growth. It comes with volatility, of course, but he says, I think over 3 to 5 years, we're going to see that trajectory continue up. What we decided to do was take a portion of the capital that we previously allocated to credit managers and invest it directly into Bitcoin and Ethereum. Speaking on the SEC with Bloomberg, however, he seemed relatively optimistic that the agency will approve a spot Bitcoin ETF once a few more factors fall into place. He says, I think that the SEC is taking the position that because the cash trading of Bitcoin is happening all over the world, they don't have a one market clearing for all buys and sells. They are worried about price manipulation, but over time, because of the transparency of the markets, I think they're going to get more comfortable with it. And actually, Grayscale has been aggressively actually trying to get this ETF passed. So listen to this article. Grayscale's lawyers have written to the SEC saying that its application for a Bitcoin spot ETF should be treated no differently from a Bitcoin futures ETF. NYSE's ARCA's application to list Teucriums, I think it's called, Bitcoin's future-based ETF was approved earlier this month. He said, we believe that the Teucrium order confirms the fundamental point when it comes to approving ETPs. There is not a basis for treating spot Bitcoin products differently from Bitcoin futures products. Grayscale CEO Mike Sonneschein said that if the SEC is comfortable with a Bitcoin futures ETF, it must also be comfortable with a spot Bitcoin ETF, and the SEC can no longer justifiably cite the 1940 Act as being the differentiating factor. The SEC is expected to decide on Grayscale's ETF application this July. So I don't know if it'll get approved. Maybe it'll get rejected again, like they've been rejecting everything. But there is a potential that even if we do have these sort of markets go sideways and we don't have that approval, it could happen in July. And check this out. The CEO said that he would consider suing the SEC if the application is rejected. That's pretty crazy to hear that, suing the SEC. So we have to see how that plays out. Now, in the past, we have seen a lot of these futures products get released, right? Bakkt came out, and we actually had a dump, right? So very oftentimes, what happened with this, the CME futures? Basically, that was the top. And then what did they do? It gave them an opportunity to short Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is not at a top right now. We're not at 60K. We're not at 70K. We're sitting around 40, 39, 38, 37, right? These are 45%, 50% discounts from the all-time high. So my guess is that if there was some manipulation going on in the background and they are trying to suppress the price lower, I think it would have a reverse effect. Whereas usually, oh, great, now we have the opportunity to short Bitcoin. Well, if Bitcoin's 55, 60, 70% off, that's going to be the opportunity to long Bitcoin. Not only are we going to see massive explosive moves for price, you could be, if we do go down to these levels, if we do, I'm not going to say anything is certain. Nothing is certain in this world. While I don't think we're going to go down to 24, we could. It's possible, right? And if we did, these guys getting that approval, everyone would jump in. All this old money would get involved in Bitcoin specifically, and I think you would see probably one of the craziest bull runs you've ever seen. It might even trump that of the 2017 bull run. So we have to see, guys, but that is the good news. So also, as you guys know, there are still opportunities, not as many, obviously, in the altcoins. Bitcoin gets hit, altcoins get hit harder. So that's why I like to bring these to you very, very early so that you could be positioned to essentially make the most gains, right? Because if you're buying a coin after it comes out, who knows with the VCs, their lockups, could they dump the coins? Nobody knows. But ultimately, guys, I have been talking about Breeder DAO, and I just want to bring this up to you because they're having their public sale token launch auction, which is going to be on Copper. The reason I'm bringing this up to you guys is because obviously getting in at the sale is the earliest you can get in, right? So I'm letting you guys know this is starting April 26th and it's running to the 29th. I do believe that DAOs are still going to be very, very huge. I mean, even NFT.com, the interview that I did the other day, even they have a DAO, right? And the thing that I want to point out is that they were successfully audited by Hacking. They got a 10 out of 10, which is the highest possible score. So there's nothing in the contract, right? It is legit as far as that is concerned. And they do say that the gateway to blockchain gaming is opening. Breeder DAO presents playcore.io. So I'm just going to play this video for you guys super quick. This is really, really interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this below. But ultimately, yes, if you are interested, check this out. Not saying you should buy it. Don't buy this coin just because I talked about it. It's an opportunity to get involved in something before it takes off. Breeder DAO public sale. You can check out their token utility below. And if you want any more information, I highly recommend you just go follow them over on Twitter, Breeder DAO. Okay, you guys can get more information on that. But obviously, getting back to Bitcoin, lots of crap on this chart. Let me just clean this chart up a bit right here. Ultimately, guys, as you can see, I am looking at this area down here to potentially be a good opportunity for a trade. If you are looking for that, I would hope that we would have some support down here. So ultimately, right here, guys, down at this level, right around this $36,000, $37,000 level, we would see that support. And if I did get that volume coming in right there, I would anticipate we would have a bounce. We might hit this as resistance. I did have a target of around 44,600. I still do anticipate that target getting hit if we can break to the upside. But we have to see what happens. You know, obviously, if we break a lower low, that's a problem, right? So we will keep focused on that. And again, guys, friendly reminder, 9 days, 23 hours left if you want to get those bonuses from MEXC Global. Also, there's $16,000 in bonuses, $7,000 from Prime XBT as well. Check that out. And if you want to learn how to trade responsibly and profitably, make sure you watch these videos popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.